Welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update. This is January 19th, 2022, and my name is Bruce. A lot of news today on the Omicron variant in Indonesia and how it's being dealt with. And one of the things it's going to be doing is a main story, and the PPKM, the community-based restrictions, are being moved from 2 weeks to 1 week. So the government is going to be monitoring things more closely, and so there'll be week-to-week announcements on what the situation is. Right now, levels have all stayed the same. And the second story is a little more positive one. 3 reasons to be optimistic about Bali. And, well, we can use some positive news these days, and I'm out right now. This is now the pattern for weather in Bulang over the last week, and so it's sunny, well, kind of overcast, cloudy, with sun out though in the morning. Afternoon, the winds pick up. Late afternoon, it starts to drizzle, and by night, it is pouring. I'm thankful for the mornings. The rest of the day sucks. So what about the weather today? The wind speed is a low 5 kilometers per hour, and the humidity is 75%, and the temperature 28.8 degrees Celsius. And so right now it is pretty nice, and I'm happy about that. So let's get started with the first main story. What's the government doing about the PPKM? Let's get on with the lead story. Anticipating Omicron developments, the government evaluates the extension of the Java-Bali PPKM every week. So they're going to move from 2 weeks to 1 week. Why? Because of the Omicron variant. Pak Luhut announced this on his weekly, well, bi-weekly, maybe now it will be weekly, press conferences after a meeting with many ministers and chaired by the president. The government continues to monitor the development of cases of Omicron variant in a number of countries to predict all possibilities that may occur in the future. And Pak Luhut said, according to the trajectory of COVID-19 cases in South Africa, they expect that the peak of Omicron wave will be in mid-February to early March. So remember, he said last week early February, and this has been modified now to go along with what the health ministry said the other day, and I talked about in the last video. Pak Luhut also emphasized that the government is taking various mitigation steps so that the trend of increasing Omicron cases in Indonesia is more gentle than in other countries. So what are these mitigation steps? Well, they're going to accelerate the booster vaccines for all people, especially those living in the greater Jakarta area, because that's where most of the Omicron cases are, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And they're going to enforce more massive health protocols to curb the spread of cases. Also, the government will continue to encourage people to get second vaccination shots for those that have not, and especially in the provinces and districts that have not yet reached 70% of people that have been completely vaccinated. Pak Luhut said, I specifically request all regional heads and regional leaders in areas where the general dose of 2 and the elderly are still below 70%, and to speed up vaccinations in order to provide protection against the Omicron variant. Additionally, the government is urging the public to avoid all unnecessary mobility and avoid activities that have the potential to cause crowds. Now, this is interesting because they're now asking people not to do things outside unless absolutely necessary. So the government is getting a little more strict than they've been in the past, even though the PPKM requirements are going to stay the same. They're asking people to avoid going out if you don't have to. Pak Luhut said, according to the president's directive at today's meeting, even though we continue to follow the PPKM level based on the existing requirements, there's nothing wrong with limiting and restraining mobility out of the house and unnecessary gathering activities. And the government asks all people not to travel abroad unless absolutely essential, and they've been asking them to do that for quite a while. And as mentioned previously, government officials are banned from traveling abroad for the next 3 weeks. And Luhut ended up, like many ministers do, saying the only way to get through this is if everybody cooperates. And our second main story, in a happier one, 3 reasons for optimism in Bali. Bali's deputy governor, and we have not heard from him in a long time, said that the government, the island's business sector, and the Balinese public are united in their optimistic belief that 2022 will see Bali's economy rebuild and return to positive numbers. And I've already talked about that 2 videos ago. Why the optimism? What are the 3 reasons? Well, according to the deputy governor, first, the success in achieving very high vaccination levels among those living in Bali and the widespread acceptance and embrace of established protocols for cleanliness, health, safety, and environmental sustainability, CHSE. And so that's number 1. Number 2, Bali's optimism is bolstered by several international events, including hosting the G20 summit, scheduled to be hosted by the island in Q4 of 2022. According to the deputy governor, these events underline the public's readiness to open Bali to international tourism. And the island has been ready to open up to international tourism since October and before, and we're still not there. And what about the 3rd reason? The 3rd reason, the deputy governor said, various surveys conducted in Europe show that 50% of the public on the continent desire to visit the island. I would love to see these surveys. Where are they? And Bali, according to the deputy governor, remains a favorite international destination. Well, I hope that's true, and I hope we see some positive proof of that in the coming months. However, the deputy governor warned that there's obstacles to recovery of tourism, and these include the regulatory and visa impediments complicating tourist visits to Bali and the escalating outbreak of Covid-19, the Omicron variant, in the main source markets for Bali tourism. Right. And also, governments still have quarantines in place in a lot of countries that feed into Bali for the tourism market. And so people do not want to come here and do the quarantine and then go back home and have to do a quarantine again. And so that is going to continue to be a sticky point. But I don't see that being relaxed right now with the Omicron variant here. Maybe next month if we weather this and don't see a huge surge. And the deputy governor ended his comments, like everybody else does, by urging all stakeholders to persuade domestic travelers coming to Bali to follow the CHSE protocols and to stick with the rules so that we can show the international market that we are ready for travelers. And let's take a look at the numbers. Numbers aren't all that good. 7-day average for new positive cases is now up to 14, and the 7-day average for deaths, 0.6. So numbers are going up. Does not look good. But the good news is we don't have any reported cases of Omicron here yet. And what about the numbers nationally? New positive cases, 1,362. We are getting up there. And deaths, 9. Okay. Deaths are rising more slowly, fortunately. The number of new cases, much more quickly. And there's some news about that coming up. What about testing in Indonesia? That's not all very good either. Yesterday, 194,308 tests were given with a 0.70 positive rate. The 7-day simple average positivity rate up to 0.49. So numbers are going up. And what about Bali? Bali tested over the last week 44,598 individuals at a 7-day positivity rate of 0.17. So we're going up across the board. And what about those vaccination numbers? Boosters have started, and kids in Bali are getting their second shot, and the story is coming up on that soon. Vaccination numbers for Bali, 3,886,314, 86% of the population. First dose. Second dose, 3,210,641, 71.1% of the population. And those are the kiddies raising our numbers. Yesterday, 30,201 doses, and so the government is pushing the vaccinations because of the Omicron variant. And what about new cases in Bali? Yesterday, 23, and recorded deaths 2. Active cases now up to 136. Numbers are not looking real good, unfortunately, but they're moving slowly, and so that's a positive. We have not had a big surge yet. In Bali, nationally, remember it was only, a week and a half ago, we were at under 200, and now we're up 1,300. So that's not good, and the government expects those numbers to continue to rise over the next month. And what is happening with Omicron in Indonesia? Omicron onset inevitable, but no need to panic, says health minister. So this is supposed to reach its peak in the middle of February or March of 2022, a little different timeline than Pak Luhut mentioned in the last video. People must prepare for a rapid spike of cases of the Omicron variant in Indonesia between 35 and 65 days since it entered Indonesia, according to the health minister. However, the health minister Pak Budi said, please don't panic. The Omicron onset will be less lethal and not likely to burden the national healthcare system, unlike last year's Delta variant, which really pushed the system to the limits and beyond in some cases. And as usual, Pak Budi reminded people to be on the alert and to follow the health protocols. And more on Omicron in Indonesia. Local transmission of Omicron discovered in 9 regions, ministry, so it's spreading out. The health ministry reported that there were 749 cases of the variant as of Monday, January 17th, 2 days ago. Of the total 749 cases, 570 were from overseas travelers, 155 were local transmissions, and the other 24 cases are still being assessed to determine if they have the virus variant. And where are these cases coming from? Cumulatively, the majority of arrivals are from Turkey, the US, Malaysia, and the UAE. Meanwhile, community spread cases have been in 9 regions. Most have been detected in Jakarta with 135 cases. Additionally, 6 cases were found in Surabaya, 4 cases in Bandung, 4 cases in South Tangerang, 2 cases in Depok, 1 case in Bogor, 1 case in Madiun, and 2 cases in Malang. Health Minister Pak Budi said that 90% of community transmissions are occurring in Jakarta. And he added, vaccine boosters for all people in the greater Jakarta area will be accelerated so that they're ready when the Omicron wave rises quickly and significantly. And more on how the government is dealing with the Omicron variant. Minister Luhut calls for return of work from home amid Omicron. So on Monday, he officially called for employers to implement the remote working, the work from home scheme, to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 variant. This call for work from home aligns with President Jokowi's orders at the meeting the other day that people should refrain from outdoor activities and public gathering unless absolutely necessary. So Pak Luhut is saying work from home if possible, and this includes office meetings and similar activities. He said this is not a ban against physical meetings, but he's leaving it up to individual employers to decide what the situation is like in their environment. And Pak Luhut ended with saying he's sure that anybody in the industry will not have any problems with his suggestions to work from home. In the last video, the lead story was about the revoking of the ban on 14 countries. Well, there's been pushback. DPR Deputy Speaker Deems entry ban revocation contradictory. So the Deputy Speaker said the policy revocation is contradictory to the government's efforts to reduce and prevent the spread of the Omicron variant. The Deputy Speaker is the chairman of the National Awakening Party, and he asked the government to review their decision to revoke the ban. He said the surge of cases going up over 1,000 has to be watched, and that the government should not take this lightly, and that international arrivals must be controlled since the majority of the Omicron cases are from international travelers entering Indonesia. And in response, A spokesman for the task force, Pakwiku, I've talked about him before, said the ban was revoked in order to ease movement across countries and because Omicron variant has spread just about everywhere in the world at this point, so it's not fair to target just 14 countries. Windy, windy, windy still, so I'm inside today. I'll do a wind speed measurement on Wednesday. This is a Monday. Omicron threat prompts call to review at-school learning. Just as we're getting back to school, there are people that want to go back to online learning because of Omicron. Okay. My granddaughter's school opened up full-time today. She's still sick, so she didn't get to go. Been waiting all this time, but much better today and hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday she'll be back in school. But let's see, what does this say? Education, Culture, Research, and Technology Minister Nadia Makarin and 3 of his ministerial colleagues previously set out requirements for school children to resume classroom instruction nationwide. And that was after what it says here, a year and a half of distance learning, could have been longer, that authorities have deemed ineffective. That's what I like here, that they've realized that this is not an effective way to teach kids. Under a joint ministerial decree issued on December 21st, all schools, private, public, or religious, are required to resume classroom learning by the second semester, which has just started. But as the number of Omicron cases in Indonesia and the number of cases in total continue to rise, the government is being pressured to go backwards on learning. However, the Education Ministry's Director General for Early Childhood, Basic and Secondary Education told the Jakarta Post that the authorities had no plan to back off the school mandate and said if there are COVID-19 infections, it will be handled case by case, yes, following the standard operational procedures that we set out in the joint decree. And that is the way to do it. While Jakarta is opening, several of the satellite cities of Jakarta, Bekasi, Depok, Bogor, have moved to delay a return to full capacity teaching at school. Surakarta is also calling for a gradual return to the classroom, and acting Bekasi city mayor said on Monday that the city administration decided to call off all at-school learning in order to prioritize health concerns. Since schools started making the transition back to classroom learning, the Education and Teachers Association found numerous schools around the country have been guilty of health protocol violations, which the group says is often due to a lack of oversight by local education agencies. They said they've received reports from Jakarta and other areas that school canteens have secretly been opened despite it being banned. Students have failed to maintain social distance from one another, and some classrooms were found to have no open ventilation. Separately, pediatrician Piprim Basara Yanuarso, who heads the Indonesian Pediatric Society, has called on the government to complete the inoculation of students, teachers, and educational staffers before returning to full capacity classroom learning. However, as mentioned, the Education Ministry is holding firm, and I hope they continue to hold firm. It's been a wasted 18 months, let's be honest about it. And a few videos ago, I mentioned that Umrah was going to be starting again. Apparently, it's going to stop for a while. Government suspends Umrah's pilgrims' departures for evaluation. So this is in order to give authorities time to evaluate the one-gate policy scheme and to monitor the Omicron variant transmission in Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. The government started letting Umrah pilgrims leave on the 8th of January, and as many as 1,731 have left since then. And when they went through the Pondok Gede Hajj dormitory in Jakarta. This is the one-gate scheme. Right? They all come in one place, they leave one place. And so under this scheme, all Umrah pilgrims arrive at the dormitory and are required to pass health screening and document checking. The pilgrims who left on the 8th are scheduled to come back to Indonesia on the 17th. So, well, that's actually today. And the ministry would check possible transmission of Omicron among the pilgrims. Now, I hope they're doing a lot of good checking. According to the Religious Affairs Ministry's Director General of Hajj and Umrah, Hillman, he said that Umrah pilgrimage is similar to other international travels. Travel agents play a dominant role in organizing the pilgrimage, while the ministry only facilitates preparation for pilgrims' departures. And one of my son-in-laws used to be involved in that before they stopped. Preparations for the Umrah departure were made through collaboration among the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Law and Human Rights, COVID-19 Task Force, Airport Authority, and the National Disaster Mitigation Agency, BNPB. Lots of ministries involved in getting the Umrah pilgrimage started again, and now it is on hold. For how long, we don't know. Be interesting to see what happens with the people returning today. And so there's a story right here before this, right, about Umrah being suspended. And, well, what happened? Well, the next day, there is another story. Minister Yaqut clarifies suspension of Umrah trips. So the minister said, no, we're not suspending trips. People misunderstood what we said. He said instead that the ministry was stopping the one-gate policy, and that one-gate policy wasn't necessary. One-gate policy has been in effect since Umrah started again on January 8th. The minister said that Umrah can go on without the one-gate policy because it's not necessary. Why is it not necessary? He emphasized that Umrah is not suspended because no countries or regulations can prohibit citizens from traveling abroad once they have obtained a visa. He said you can't keep people if they're criminals, if they're under suspicion of something, but if they have a valid visa, you can't stop them from traveling. Those Umrah people can travel, he said. However, and this is a confusing part of this, the ministry ordered the Director General of Hajj and Umrah, Pohlmann, talked about him in the previous video, not to revoke the scheme, the one-gate policy scheme, because Omicron cases still exist among Umrah pilgrims. Okay, is that confusing? It's confused me anyway. And what's going on in Thailand? We haven't heard from Thailand in a few videos. Tourism fee plan gets mixed reviews, a tourism fee. Now, we had that mentioned here one time, I don't know, before the pandemic, of course. Foreigners in Thailand have expressed mixed reactions to paying for a fee when they come into Thailand. Okay, understandable. Everybody pushes back on having to pay extra money. The government plan is to add a 300 baht fee that would be included in the ticket price starting in April. The government spokesperson said that the proposal to collect the fee from tourists under the Tourism and Sports Ministry Tourism Promotion Plan is being considered, and this would be for air, sea, land, any way you get into the country. The money is supposedly going to be used to develop tourism attractions, upgrade infrastructure, and fund accident insurance initiatives for foreign visitors. Now, some foreign visitors have questioned whether any of this is going to happen. A tourist from Indonesia, I like this, they mentioned somebody from Indonesia, told the Bangkok Post that she understands well why the government wants to collect money, but she's not sure what they're going to actually do with it. And an English tourist said the tourism charge appears to be a badly thought out government policy with unanticipated and unpleasant implications. Wonder what the unpleasant ones are. It's uncertain whether the proceeds will get to the intended recipients, he said. However, he said he wouldn't mind paying. And more on Thailand. Thailand mulls resuming quarantine waiver for foreign visitors. Okay, that's interesting. The health minister said on Monday that as part of a proposed easing of some COVID-19 restrictions, the government will consider resuming the quarantine waiver. That quarantine waiver was the test and go policy, and that allowed visitors to skip the mandatory quarantine if they arrived and they tested negative and they fully vaxxed. And that was suspended in late December as Omicron started to spread throughout Thailand. The health minister said, we will propose measures that can be done safely and are medically sound. What are those measures? Not clear, according to this article. And he said, if approved, it can start on February 1st. So in another couple of weeks, could be back to quarantine-free travel to Thailand. Thailand currently had on Monday almost 7,000 infections and 13 deaths. The virus is not done there yet, but they're looking at opening up again. This is a country that wants to get the tourists in. And what about tourism in Bali? Government pushes for sports tourism in Bali to revitalize the economy. We haven't heard from our old friend Pak Sandiago Uno, the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy. And he said, we just participated in the revival of Bali's tourism and economy. We also contributed to the governor's charity golf tournament. So I guess there was a golf tournament here recently. And saw the enthusiasm of creative economy players, in which 70% of them are from outside Bali. The Bali provincial government is also preparing for development of a sprint rally and speed rally circuit on 150 to 200 hectare area land managed by the Sanghyang Regional Plantation Company in Jembrana. Okay, what is a sprint rally and a speed rally? If anybody knows, please leave a comment here. I guess it's some kind of racing circuit. Cars, motorcycles, bicycles? Not sure. The development of sports tourism-based infrastructure facilities in Jembrana takes into account Bali's beautiful scenery and rich, unique culture. The mix offers good potential, he said. This sounds like it is taking Bali's unique culture into account. Maybe they're going to race with the gamelan playing. One circuit is expected to employ 300 workers. So how many circuits would they make? The number of people that could be employed was necessary during the pandemic for the government's efforts to revitalize the economy and prepare for the G20 summit, he added. I've also been informed that Ocean Man will be back in June in Sanur. Okay, I don't know any of these things. And according to Pak Sandiaga Uno, most interestingly, and Pak Sandiaga Uno said, I am also informed that the World Cup for Ocean Open Water Swimming will be held in Bali at the end of the year. He said this is a world-class event and it will be part of the economic revival of Bali along with better control of the COVID-19 pandemic. So is anybody a motorcycle car racing enthusiast? If you know about this, let me know. Maybe somebody is an ocean open water swimming person. Leave a comment below and enlighten us as to what these things are. And how are vaccinations going for the kiddies in Bali? Vaccination for children aged 6 to 11 years enters phase 2 dose. And they did this 2 days ago in my granddaughter's school. Unfortunately, she's still sick. And so she missed it, and so we're going to have to get that, get at the Puskesmas once she gets well. And so the head of the Buleleng District Health Office, Dr. Suchipto, said that the vaccination distance from the first dose to the second dose is 28 days. And he said the second dose is now being carried out. And when Bali is covered about the vaccination things, I don't know, they always go to SDN3 in Banjar, Jawa, well, which I pass all the time when I'm walking. The principal said that hopes that 100% of the children will be vaccinated with the second dose. And as many as 544 students will take the second dose of the vaccination today, and 35 will take the first dose. And when asked about the enthusiasm of the pupils for the vaccination, the principal said that they were very enthusiastic, high response, and that included the parents as well. Okay, my granddaughter was not real happy about getting the vaccination, but she knows that she needs it. The principal said that the hopes are that by vaccinating all children, school will be able to get back to normal, and so schools in Bali are getting back to full-on days. I don't know about the rest of the island. Anybody that has any information, leave a comment, but in my granddaughter's school, lab school here in Singaraja, they are now back to full days. And parents were also enthusiastic, as the principal said, and one parent said that the vaccination activities were very good. She hopes that after the vaccinations, things will return to normal, and don't we all hope that? Time for an update and wrap up. Thanks for all the people that commented about our first cooking video. We appreciate it. And if you haven't seen it, you can check the link up here and take a look at it. And we did filming the other day, yesterday, I guess it was actually, and we're making lumpia this week. Yes, and so that will be out on Sunday. And so if you're new here, every Wednesday and Sunday, Bali COVID-19 updates, and Sunday there will be new cooking videos each week. Any updates? Nothing really. There's been no big news this morning, thank goodness. Everything is, well, I'm in a good mood because the sun's out and I just cleaned up the balcony and I hope that it doesn't get messed up again tonight. And the birds are singing and my granddaughter's fever is down to closer to a manageable 36.8 degrees. And to wrap up, the government is playing it safe by doing the PPKM evaluations on a weekly basis now because they want to be ready to move if numbers spike, and there's people that are expecting them to spike. more than they have at this point. Numbers are going up. As I said, we're up to over 1,300 now per day around the country. Things in Bali, numbers are going up, but still not huge. And vaccinations are being pushed for everybody. And just a comment, if you are an anti-vaxxer, I'm not here to argue with you. You have your belief system. You can just watch a different channel. I'm not going to argue about vaccines and booster shots. And so the government is playing cautious and trying to keep on top of Omicron and hoping that we're not going to get a big surge. And interesting news from Thailand, despite the rising cases, it looks like they may go back to the quarantine-free policy that they had, the test and go. And so we'll see how that works. The target date is February 1st, only a couple weeks away. People will be going to Thailand rather than Bali if there's a quarantine-free option there. So that's it. Short wrap-up today. If you found this useful, helpful, amusing, please give it a thumbs up. Apparently this helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing wherever you are. If you want to come to Bali, hang in there. Direct flights will happen sometime in the hopefully near future. And if you really want to come and you're planning on staying for a while, you can still come in on the B211 visa using business as your excuse, but you have to do that through an agent. Well, stay safe. Be kind to someone today. Thanks for visiting, and I will see you on Sunday.